Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I'm not here with Geeky Sparkles. We're going to talk about video games, the gaming industry, and we're going to talk about DEI and inclusivity in gaming. And shockingly, over 95% of players apparently do not consider inclusivity important in gaming. It's not as important as the game itself. Oh my God, imagine that. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Bleeding Fool, not to be confused with Bleeding Cool, putting up an article talking about a second video game crash on the horizon. Yeah, I think it's already happening. I think it's, it's one of those things where you're not going to realize that we're in the middle of a crash until you look back in 10 years and you're like, oh yeah, that's when AAA gaming collapsed. So let's talk about all of this before we get into it any further. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Go out to Clownfish Minus, join the Reef. You get exclusive podcasts, you get exclusive content. It helps us grow beyond YouTube because I got a not so fresh feeling about YouTube. I don't know, guys. I think things are going to get really weird. Really weird, especially depending on how the election goes. I think things are going to get weird. So check us out at clownfishminus.com. I guess we're going to go out to Bleeding Fool first. I've had a bunch of people sending me links to this and also the other articles. So I thought we'd just combine them into one video, right? So this comes from Bleeding Fool. Is a second video game crash on the horizon? Yeah, it is. The game industry is a multi-billion-dollar juggernaut. Yeah, boasts massive profits, blockbuster releases, and a global audience that spans all age groups. Despite its success, concerns are growing about the possibility of a second game market implosion akin to the crash of '83. Now, depending on who you ask, some people are like, there was no video game crash in 1983 because PC gaming was fine. Arcades were fine. Yeah, that's kind of like the excuse people are giving for comic books. Well, because graphic novels and manga are fine, therefore the direct market never crashed. I'm like, no, the direct market crashed and it never got back up. Comic shops are shutting down. It's people do this a lot of times, and look, it is true. I mean, it's 100% true that PC gaming was fine and arcades were fine, but we're talking the home console market. We're talking Atari, ColecoVision, all that stuff did crash 100%. I mean, you could find Atari games for like $1 at KB Toys in like 1989, 1990. I mean, there's so much of this crap that was produced that never sold. And it does feel like this is kind of going on with AAA gaming right now. Like there are a ton of hundreds of millions of dollars being spent on titles that nobody is playing. And a lot of it does come down to the focus on DEI and inclusivity over gameplay and basic functionality of the games. Star Wars Outlaws, the entire conversation was around the jawline of the female protagonist and sexism in gaming and blah, 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 when the game was fundamentally broken and it cost too damn much. $70 to $120. And nobody bought it. 1 million copies sold. That's not good. Not for a Star Wars title. Not for a AAA Star Wars title. And almost all the conversations around AAA gaming over the last couple of years have been around DEI, diversity and inclusion, and gamers are bigots, and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of it does go back to this Sweet Baby Inc., this group of sensitivity consultants that are basically a group of extortionists. And you want to talk about grifters. Right? People call YouTubers grifters. You want to talk about grifting? You basically make a need for yourself in the market when there really isn't a need to have you. And that's kind of what these sensitivity readers and these consultants do. They're like, oh, hey, data says, or whatever, trends say that we need more XYZ kind of a person in a video game. But I know you as a middle-aged white man, you don't understand how to do that. So that's okay. That's where we come in. Give us hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars, and we will tell you everything wrong with your game to make it more diverse and inclusive. So it appeals to less than 1% of people in Portland, or Brooklyn or someplace like that, right? Not middle America. And we're seeing the numbers reflect that. We're seeing the quote unquote modern audience. Those numbers are being accurately reflected in the number of people that are buying these games. because the quote unquote modern audience, a lot of them are not gamers, and they're certainly not playing games like Concord. A lot of them are playing like, cozy games, Sims or Animal Crossing or something like that. Right. And again, this comes down to, are the people screaming about the toxicity in video games and comic books and movies and whatever? Are they actually fans of these things? Or are they just looking for something to latch onto? And I think the answer has been the latter for the most part. Same with tabletop. You have a lot of people that scream about tabletop and inclusivity in tabletop, and they've never actually played. Well, I watch Critical Role. It's not the same thing. So yeah, they're talking about what happened in 83, back to the article. They said, to understand the possibility of a second crash, we need to revisit the cataclysmic events of 83. The first crash's primary cause was an oversaturated market with low-quality games, lack of consumer confidence, and failure of major titles that would include E.T., the piss-poor Pac-Man. I think Raiders of the Lost Ark was pretty bad. A lot of movie tie-ins. We had Purina putting out video games. You have Chase the Chuck Wagon, all that. Market saturation. One of the main factors that contributed to the 83 crash was market saturation. And this is a concern today as well. With the advent of digital distribution, the barriers to entry for game development have lowered significantly. Steam, Apple Store, Google Play are flooded with thousands of new games every year. That's true. While the democratization of game development has brought many positives, it's also inundated customers with too many choices. Many games struggle to stand out, and with such stiff competition, even well-made titles fail to find an audience. That's actually true. The rise of games as service has resulted in fewer blockbuster releases. Fortnite and Call of Duty remain profitable. That's just it. Like, people are playing old games. They're playing games that are 10, 12, 15 years old. They're going back and playing old games because they don't trust new games. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, people, there are more video games out there than any one person can play in a lifetime. Same with comic books, same with movies or TV shows. And a lot of people are just going back to old media because they're like, I don't need the new stuff. I don't like the new stuff. It's clearly got an agenda, and I'm not down with it. The quality's not there either. I mean, you can have an agenda if your game is really damn good, but you can't even get that right. Like, the first thing needs to be, is the game any good? Okay. Should we add diversity to this good game? Yes or no? But if the game's not good, putting diversity over quality, then what's going to happen is all of your efforts to push for diversity and inclusion in video games are going to go poof, because people are going to associate diversity in video games with failure. And that's what they're doing already. So whether or not that was the intention, the fact that you put diversity, equity, and inclusion over a quality video game experience means that now every time somebody it's just like Halo, right? Just like Halo, people saw one of the people working on Halo, Microsoft employee, and it was a black lesbian with purple hair, and she had pronouns in her bio, and immediately everybody was like, yeah, this is going to suck. And it's like, you know what? DEI did this. DEI did this. Because 10 years ago, I don't know if anybody would have thought anything of it, but because there have been so many piss poor projects that put DEI front and center ahead of quality. Now, every time somebody sees somebody that's not straight, white, and male, a lot of times they're like, oh yeah, that's DEI, that's woke. I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to play it. It is what it is, guys. I mean, that's where we're at. So you got to put out a good product first. Rising development costs, they're talking about with AAA games, they're hundreds of millions of dollars. The indie game conundrum, there are a lot of good indie games out there, but they can't find players because, again, they don't have the marketing machine behind them. Economic pressure, outside of economic factors, just consider what a global recession would do to already inflated or inflation-strapped disposable income. New video games are luxury goods, so expect them to be among the first expenses people cut. Yeah, if you're still playing a game that you bought 12 years ago, if you're backlogged on Steam, why would you go out and drop coin on a new game that the marketing bullet points have all focused on diversity and inclusion? And you're looking at the trailers and you're all like, hey, why is why is Cyrax a black woman now or something? It's like, what the hell is going on here? Consumer fatigue. I think that's 100% true. Could it happen? Yeah, I think it could. I think it could. So let's talk about this then. This is actually the meat of the video. I know it took me 10 minutes to get here, but this is coming from a site called Tech News for Gamers. I like the Transformer logo here, kind of. Over 95% of players don't consider inclusivity important in gaming, according to Abdullah Wasim. Forced inclusivity is an enemy of creativity. I think that's true, because you basically give yourself constraints, and it's like, well, we can't do this, that, or whatever because it might offend this group and blah blah, and it's dumb. I'm not saying forced inclusivity. Now, if you make a quality game and you're like, hey, by the way, let's try to be a little more inclusive in this game, that's another thing. But we have corporate mandated inclusivity. And, it means that there has to statistically be a certain number of this kind of person, that kind of person, whatever. And it's not even a marketing thing. If it were a marketing thing, like, hey, let's just, do a character creator that lets everybody make the kind of character they want, and that's fine. But it becomes anti-marketing, because then that becomes the talking point, right? Like, I don't know much about the new Dragon's Age game, but all I'm hearing about are trans scars. Top surgery scars. Like, I don't give a shit one way or the other. I'm going to be honest. I personally don't give a shit one way or the other, but that becomes the entire conversation because such a big damn deal gets made about all this stuff. A recent poll indicates that 95% of players don't care about inclusivity in games. Forcing inclusivity into video games has been a known culprit, leading them to failure. Again, people look at games that have diversity front and center, and that's a bullet point, and they're like, yeah, most of these games have sucked, so I'm going to pass on this one. DEI has become an unfortunate trend that has gradually been gaining more pace. They said inclusivity is I don't know about being an unfortunate trend. I don't think it's unfortunate to be inclusive as long as it's organic and it doesn't feel like some shameless corporate cash grab, or that, some gender studies major that's never played a video game just came in and decided to redo everything, right? That, what I'm talking about? Because I'm looking at games, even, they have Mortal Kombat. Well, we had a lot of non-white folks in Mortal Kombat in the 90s, and nobody gave a shit. I'm just saying, I'm just saying we didn't care because it wasn't like front and center, like, oh my God, guys, we have this black male named Jax. Also, he's pansexual. And that's all you need to know. Yeah, okay, we've got fighting and stuff, and there's blood. You don't want to hear about the fatalities, but just so you know, this is how diverse and inclusive we are. Yeah, nobody gave a shit, right? While having characters of different origins isn't bad, forcing a narrative is. Yes, most fans share this opinion, as 95% of gamers voted they don't care about inclusivity in gaming. Is this the one from NeoGAF? Yeah, NeoGAF, which is very strange that this is coming from NeoGAF, because this is a website that's usually all about diversity and inclusion. And they're like, yeah, the very first comment here, I don't give a rat's ass about race or gender. Make it a good fucking game and I will play it. The story is a big part of the experience. Yeah, this is a website that's, you've got the quote unquote wokies on this board, but to be fair, a lot of those activists, they commandeer any free to post forum, whether it's this or Reddit or whatever. But yeah, when they force inclusion ideas down our throat, it's obvious and becomes cringy or detracts from the story. That's exactly it. Nobody's saying you can't do it. Nobody's saying you can't have diversity and inclusion in games. But when it becomes an obvious corporate bullet point and people can smell that shit from a mile away, they actively reject the game because it's obvious they put that over quality control. I hate that they force it. Good luck. This thread's been tried and shut down many times before for politics. Speaking as a brown guy who comes from a non-Christian background, nope, doesn't affect me at all. My opinion on this is if I don't like something or if I get offended, I just don't watch, play, read it. That's it. That's it. You don't like it. Not every game's for every person. And it's the same on the other side too. Like I always bring up Thirsty Sword Lesbians because it's so laughable because it pretty much encapsulates like all of this stuff. But it's obviously not a game for me. I don't care. I don't care that Thirsty Sword Lesbians exists. I am not going to play it. I have no desire to play it. I wish them well. I'm not going to go harass them. I mean, I'll make fun of it because it's kind of like, what the hell is this? Actually, what we made fun of with Thirsty Sword Lesbians, which is a tabletop game, by the way, what we made fun of was the fact that they loud and proud said, we don't want white guys playing this game. I'm like, well, I don't think you were in any straight white guys. I don't think you were in any danger of straight white guys, picking up your purple blue haired lesbian role-playing game. It's obviously not for them, right? And that was the thing. Like if you just put the game out there, Thirsty Sword Lesbians, side shape, purple hair, whatever, it's like, okay, this is for a certain demographic, right? Or if you, the problem I have with it too is that every game has now become Thirsty Sword Lesbians, including D&D and, Pathfinder to some extent. And you know what I'm saying? But I don't have a problem with the game existing. So again, everybody just realize that not everything is for every person, but you get a lot of people on both sides of it. They're like, oh my God, you've got, Christian science fantasy. We can't have that because I hate Christians. I'm like, you were never going to buy this game. You were never going to buy it. And you, Mr. Christian, straight white Christian guy, you were never going to buy Thirsty Sword Lesbians. Or if you do, don't tell your wife about it. Anyway, it's very important to me. On a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 0. And I 100% agree with you, original poster. In today's world, inclusivity actually means intentionally divisive and add shit to games so we can check a box and pound our chest and tell people how much we care. We just want good games. I don't give a shit. I want developers to develop games based on their ideas for the story and the worlds they're creating. Not losing my voice here, man. I'm losing my voice. Angry Gamergate guy loses his voice. No, I'm not angry and I'm not Gamergate. I'm just stating the obvious. Based on their ideas for story and the world they're creating, not a checklist to try to appease an entire crowd. We play games to escape bullshit of everyday life. Oh my God, NeoGAF has gone full Gamergate. It's only an issue when it's ham-fisted. Yeah. I'm not a fat Italian, a blue hedgehog, or a big-boobed archaeologist and never felt the need to be growing up. I can tell the difference between games and reality. Tell it to the Sweet Baby Inks and the, all these DEI consultants that exist out there because they're like, I need to feel seen in all games. I need a character creator that's exactly like me so I can make characters exactly like me. One of my favorite game series of all time is Ratchet and Clank, this person says. In those games, you play as an animal. Well, some people want to be animals in real life. Same is true for the majority of games. Women or non-Caucasian people, I don't care as long as the characters are well written and make sense. Yeah. Isn't it enough that every other thread devolves into this topic? Do we really need another one? We're talking about a trend going on in modern video games. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's basically, look, the root of it is, I believe we have a lot of tourists, like I said, gender studies majors who are playing pretend. They want to pretend that they're into video games because video games are popular, but they never really played video games. But they're like, well, that's an untapped market. I would play video games if there were more brown people in video games. Like, no, bitch, you would have played video games this whole time. You don't play video games. You want to create and distort things for a fan audience. You want to take your gender study degree and make it useful. So you're trying to latch on to popular media, whatever's the most popular. And they did this in comics and they're doing it in movies, or they tried to do it in movies, and it's ending. Consumers are rejecting it. Right. And, that's coming from NeoGAF, right? They're usually pretty far left and they're like, yeah, I don't give a shit. But this article, back to the original article on, Tech News for Gamers, which sounds like a very reputable source, but they're right. But they said, yeah, forced inclusivity was never a problem before. Sweet Baby Inc. popped up, and next thing you know, all these studios are chasing it. And it's a fad. But the problem is this fad is costing them hundreds of millions of dollars, and it's ending. And yeah, I 100% believe there is going to be a crash. And it's not going to look like the other crash. I don't think we're going to have piles and piles and piles of physical discs in bargain bins or whatever, because God knows, we don't really have a lot of physical games anymore. But gamers are rejecting new games. You pretty much have to prove to them that your game isn't quote unquote woke anymore to get them interested, or at least show them that the game is just about gameplay. And, oh yeah, by the way, we might have some brown people and some gay people in it, but that's not the plot, the literal plot of the game. Like if it were the literal plot of the game, you know, being gay, that would be a dating sim, right? And there are games like that. And if it's for you, fantastic. Fantastic. I just want things to go back to normal. You know, most people just want things to go back to normal. I will settle for 2009, 2010, right before things got weird, before Tumblr and you know, all these tourists sort of took over all of entertainment and tried to twist it into something it's never really been, chasing a phantom audience and chasing off their OG audience in the process, right? I mean, they blow through these industries and they change it and people leave. They leave. And a lot of them don't make a lot of noise about it. They're not Gamergate. They just don't buy your product. They're like, yeah, I don't really care. I'm just going to go back and I'm going to play old Tomb Raider when she still raided tombs and had big boobs. I don't need to be lectured, you know? So I think there's going to be a crash. And I think the biggest group affected are going to be these DEI consultants. I think they're going to be completely useless. I think they're going to be worthless. I think they're going to be out of work because no company in their right mind would hire someone like Sweet Baby Inc. to tell them how to lose hundreds of millions of dollars. Going to wrap it up. Please subscribe. We'll talk later. Join the reef. Go to clownfish-.com. That's clownfish-.com. You will get exclusive access to podcasts and videos and comic strips and more, as well as merch discounts. Check it out. If you were a member, you could get this t-shirt, this dismal t-shirt on our website. You'd get a 10% discount on that. You can also join in the community on clownfish-.com. Thank you so much for the support.